It was a triumph of social media marketing. A feel-good exuberance mob in New York's iconic Grand Central Station at the dawn of the Instagram age.
Today is media in general. It's not anymore newspaper, magazine, TV, radio. Today's media means you have to attract a community. You have to talk with them every day.
When Moncler's chief executive Remo Ruffini staged his New York Spectacular, sent cyclists into Milan's Velodrome, or took over the Lincoln Center, he'd already stepped outside the traditional boundaries of the catwalk into the realm of the theater.
Welcome to the Winter Palace.
Tapping into the social media zeitgeist that had helped propel an almost bankrupt French ski wear company into the upper echelons of global fashion. Now he's taking a new risk. This is Bloomberg Turnaround. Join me to see how Remo Ruffini is changing engines in mid-flight at Moncler, the luxury puffer jacket maker. In 2018, Ruffini announced he was going to ditch the business model that had supported the turnaround of the failing company he'd bought in 2003, when he propelled it from a mid-ranking ski gear maker to a business among the most profitable listed luxury companies in the world. But Ruffini has refused to rest on his laurels. In an effort to prepare the company for the next stage of expansion and turbocharge sales, he announced a new way of doing business. Instead of spring, summer, winter, fall, men's and women's, he now has a collection every month. With 8 different designers, he dubbed it Genius.
For me, it's an incredible instrument of communication, because it could have something to talk about to the market every month with famous designers, nice images of products, very innovative products, strange products. So it's incredible rich of content, this approach.
This collection allows them to, with great frequency, be sharing something new, be bringing different influencers, targeting different subsegments of their consumer base. And it gives them a lot to talk about on social media. It's probably the most valuable asset they have on social media today.
They really are working on what Moncler will be in 5 years' time. So I think that this approach, long-term approach, could be a guarantee that they could still have room to grow.
CME Group launched Micro E-mini Futures Contracts, a new, smaller-sized suite.
Welcome to your own office, David Tweed. What I wanted to ask first is, what is the essence of Genius?
So really content. The people, they need content, the people need ideas. Then at the end of the day, they need also product to go into the stores. Yeah. But you know, our strategy is based to attract people every month in the stores, but not only to sell a jacket, but you know, also to participate to our let's call festival, you know. And again, our strategy is based on all generation, means every month we want to talk with different generation.
The strategy seemed to work. The year of the launch, sales rose by 1/5, the fastest pace in 3 years. And the share price has staged a recovery after its steady ascent stalled briefly at the end of last year.
The way that it works is that they're using the base of their history, but allowing creativity individually to those collaborators. That reaches a much younger audience, speed of audience, is very much a cachet on digital and e-commerce, and creates a buzz around other products that are available under the Moncler brand.
Like this puffer jacket for dogs, a snip at $425. In the fourth quarter of 2018, Moncler was the biggest gainer in ranking of luxury searches compiled by List, a global fashion search platform.
Genius diffusion lines drop monthly and were responsible for the brand's biggest spikes in both social engagement and search volume.
Genius is not just about selling more products. Genius is about how do I give something for my consumers to talk about on a regular basis, right? One of the challenges of traditional luxury is that there's an inherent conservatism in some ways, right? I need to stand for something consistent. I can't be refreshing all the time. Yet that makes it difficult in the social media world. What do I talk about every week? And if I'm not talking to my consumers every week, they're not listening. So these collaborations, the frequent launches, allow them to have something to talk about. Represent less than 10% of their sales a day, but I would expect half of what's discussed on social media, if you can measure it.
Another crucial thing in the fashion industry today is that you have something that is limited. Today everybody wants in the market something that is limited. You collect watches, you collect shoes, you collect whatever. So it's a trend. For me it's very important for the Genius also that the fact that every month you have a collection, you have a designer, and that's it. Then you cannot buy anymore.
Coming up, we'll talk more with Remo Ruffini about the first time he transformed Moncler, back in 2003, when it was a French skiwear company that had seen better days.
This was a fantastic example how to redesign the company, where we keep the roots as close as you can.
In 2003, Ruffini bought Moncler, a 50-year-old French sportswear company on the brink of insolvency. Moncler's sales were less than 50 million euros at the time. Last year, turnover was 1.4 billion.
Actually, the Moncler, I was very familiar with the brand because in Italy in the 70s was very, very popular. And I bought my first Moncler when I was like 14, 15 years old. I was living out of my own town is Como. Mm-hmm. My house was a little bit out of Como, like 6-7 kilometers. And every morning I used my motorcycle to go to the school. When I was 14, 15, at that time it was much more cold than today. And I always used this jacket, very bright, very shiny.
Moncler is named after Monestier de Clermont, an alpine town in France. Founded in 1952, it made tents and quilted sleeping bags, and its workers wore quilted coats to keep warm. Mountaineer Lionel Terry saw them and suggested Moncler outfit his 1954 expedition to K2, considered the world's most dangerous mountain to climb.
Achille Compagnoni and Lino Lacedelli were the first to successfully reach its summit in 1954.
Kitted out in Moncler, the brand became a favourite among the jet set. Brigitte Bardot, Jackie Kennedy, the Empress of Iran. But when Ruffini bought it, the company was on the skids, buffeted from competition from the likes of Prada and the North Face.
At that time was a trendy brand, but it was mainly a skiwear brand. So you had basic colors. I remember you had yellow, red, blue, but nothing to compare with today, of course. Yes, after a while, I think in the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, they lost their way. It was still, I think, a French brand at that time. And then Mr. Ruffini came over the brand and decided to buy it.
So I'm looking for something real with strong roots, and after 6-7 months looking for the market, I realized Moncler could possibly available. And after 1 year talking, I bought the brand. And this was a fantastic example how to redesign the company, where we keep the roots as close as you can.
I think you talk about the DNA a lot, right?
Yeah, a lot, because I think you have to respect, especially when you have a brand, they have a very strong DNA. Yeah. Why you have to throw this on the garbage or whatever? I think it's very important to keep the DNA, to try to be modern, to try to improve everything, but the DNA is very, very important.
eToro, the world's leading social trading platform. Millions of users from over 100.
Ruffini decided to move the company here, to Milan, Italy's fashion capital.
People tell me, though, that you are considered to be a master in brand rejuvenation. Okay, so what did you do when you first went into Moncler in 2003 and you looked at the range and thought, okay, this is how we're going to take this brand forward? How did you do it? What were the nuts and bolts of that?
Honestly, nothing special.
Come on.
Honestly, I went there, I started working really on the small things, you know. I started working on first in the product, in the quality, to redesign the ideas, because at the end of the day, you need a big brand, but you need also a contemporary product.
This is the global puffer jacket. This was Remo Ruffini's big idea, to take a piece of outerwear that was normally only used on the slopes when you're skiing or in alpine expeditions and turn it into a luxury item that people would like to wear in town. You developed this idea of the global down jacket.
Yes, because for me it was important not only to remain on this kind of stores, not only use for hiking or climbing, but also I think it was a big potential to use this product also walking to the street. You know, that's why I started working on quality, on weight, on performance, on all these kind of things.
I read once that you were looking at people in an airline or in an airplane that just arrived from New York.
Yes, because since when I bought the company, I bought one jacket I use. As soon as I realized that it was impossible to use, because one day you go to New York, it's cold, maybe it's okay with your jacket, but then you fly to Tokyo, it's 22 degrees, you don't know where you put the jacket, it's huge.
Right.
You don't have enough space on the bag to put the jacket. And I say lightness is very important, you know, softness and everything on that. I really work on technology, I really work on weight, I really work on this kind of thing. And then I start walking around the world to understand what is the potential of this brand and understand which kind of people they can use. They can use in the city or not only in the mountain. And then after 1 year, I really tried to move the brand from the, as I say, sport goods stores into more luxury environment.
Once he got the product right, Ruffini executed the next part of his plan. The Gamme Rouge line for women, the first time ski wear had been presented as fashion, followed by Gamme Bleu for men. With each show becoming more of an event, an autumn forest for the girls, a strobing striptease for the boys. To say nothing of the 2009 Grand Central Station flash mob, an event almost perfectly timed with Instagram becoming a thing. Then came the stores.
This is the Via Monte Napoleone. It is without doubt the most prestigious luxury fashion street in all of Italy. Prada, Ferragamo, Armani. So it makes absolute sense that when Moncler decides to expand and open a flagship store in Milan, it chooses this location.
Yes, after 2-3 years, you know, late 2008, I decided to open my first store. I say, where I open the stores, you know, could be, you know, Champs-Élysées or Faubourg Saint-Honoré. We decided to go straight to the most luxury street in Europe, basically, one of the most luxury streets in Europe. We opened small stores in Faubourg Saint-Honoré. Honestly, we feel, since when we opened the doors, that the brand was good receipts from this kind of customer. You know, we have line outside every day, basically.
And managing your own distribution, though, that's something that's also key, isn't it?
I think since the beginning this was another turning point. I decided to basically cancel all distribution, agent, license. Really, I think my dream was really to control 100% since the day one, my everything. And we cancel all the partner because, you know, it was quite conflict of interest. I want to build up a brand, they want sell, and sell. And I start my retail business alone. I open my store directly, but not only in Paris. I open my store directly all around the world, from China, Japan, United States. I mean, it was much more difficult, but the good thing, I control the process. I think control everything, have the fast feedback from the market, understand what's going on. Especially at the beginning when we have like 3, 4, 5 stores, I call them every night, you know, to understand what's going on, what's happening. Now it's a little bit more difficult, but with data, you can have the same feedback.
There was a real concerted effort to open own retail. You also saw a move away from the wholesale, right, so into that retail transition. So this was the period, I would say, of real expansion, becoming a global brand, right, and really starting to put down a lot of flags here in Asia.
You can see the importance of the retail strategy here. Retail sales, the pale orange bars, easily outpace wholesale, the bright orange bars. Still ahead, how Remo Ruffini developed his China strategy.
This is Moncler's Hong Kong flagship store. It's one of about half a dozen outlets in the city, and it is vast. We're looking at 500 square meters of retail space. It was the biggest outlet in all of Asia until the beginning of the year when a bigger store opened in Singapore. Ruffini thinks that China is where the growth in luxury is going to be. Moncler is just getting started.
3-4 years ago, I decided that in China it was better to sell brand perception than sell jacket. We're not open too many stores. I think we have a huge possibility to increase our size of the store, increase number of doors.
I'm creating my Wix site. You think you already have a stunning website? That's cool. You're welcome to skip, or
Nearly a decade after buying the company, Ruffini decided it was time to take Moncler public. A second attempt after the first was foiled by the market upheaval surrounding the Greek crisis. It was a way for Ruffini to arrange an exit for his private equity investor without having to turn to new private equity funding.
Since the beginning, I have private equity in my company. They had me to buy the company. At the beginning it was Mittel, then Carlyle, that is an American private equity, came to the company. And after that, as you know, they need an exit, basically. And Carlyle, late 2009, 2010, he told me we need to exit at least a part. I don't want to start again to make, raising another private equity. Say, okay, let's try to go public.
In the end, Carlyle sold its 45% stake to French private equity company Eurazeo.
In the winter of 2013, Moncler has its initial public offering. It turns out to be the most successful in Europe that year. The shares rise 41% on the first day of trading, valuing the company at 3.6 billion euro, about $5 billion US. Remo Ruffini becomes $1 billion richer.
Eurazeo hung on to its stake for 8 years, selling the last 5% in March. Over the years, its investment generated a return of 1.4 billion euros and an internal rate of return of 43%. The IPO funds helped back the expansion into China that started in 2011, a market that partly inspired Ruffini to launch Genius.
Ruffini says the key is first of all to establish the brand, and the stores will follow.
I think the future of luxury is for sure China. I think we are still very small in China. 3-4 years ago, I decided that in China it was better to sell brand perception than sell jacket. We're not open too many stores. I think we have a huge possibility to increase our size of the store, increase number of doors. At the moment we have less than, I think, 30 stores.
So right now for you, China is about selling brand perception. It's like you're preparing the market.
I think it's very important because for sure in 10 years China will be the biggest market. I don't know if in 10 years I will be there. It means the most important thing to remain strong in China is to build up a very strong brand. For sure the market will be the biggest.
It's a prediction shared by others in the industry.
I think it's important to recognize the secular trend of the growing affluent in China. So there is a lot of news and volatility that we read about, the trade war, right? If we were sitting here in 2013, we would have been talking about anti-corruption, which actually took a big gifting portion of the luxury goods market away, right? And then all of a sudden there was a lot of naysayers on the China luxury market. But actually what was still happening, and it's still happening today, is a very consistent growth of the Chinese affluent. And that's why we predict there'll be up to 40% of the global luxury market by 2023, because the secular growth of this segment. So there'll be some ups and downs, but the overall trend is still there.
40% from what?
It's about 32 today.
The Chinese market is vast, but not necessarily easy. Like when Dolce & Gabbana released a marketing video depicting a Chinese beauty trying to eat pizza with chopsticks. It didn't help the brand's reputation when one of the founders let fly with an attack on China's netizens. A boycott ensued. That's an issue when Chinese shoppers are estimated to account for at least a third of luxury sales and 2/3 of the industry's growth.
How do you go about avoiding making cultural errors in a market which is, let's face it, it's a foreign market?
I think, as I said before, since the first day we decided to go directly in every market, a team is very important. The team you build there is very important because I always say to the guys, we have to be domestic, because this is very important, because the culture, the language, everything is totally different. I cannot talk the same language in Japan, in Seoul, or in Beijing, even if it is 1 hour flight. The culture is so different that you need something local to help you. But at the same time, you have to be domestic. For sure, you need a global vision, because otherwise you become a domestic company. Means is the mix, you know, and the team you have in the region is very, very important.
It's a fine line to balance. You know, I think if you've seen recent scandals, Dolce & Gabbana, it's important to have a sensitivity and understand who your consumers are, have in place some of the governance and guardrails to help contain the conversation, to be appropriate and inspiring for who those consumers are.
But if you do make a mistake, then how do you react to it?
I'm sorry, right? Sometimes, I mean, I think there are probably many approaches to this, being upfront and straightforward and not letting the thing fester for a long time, was probably one of the better ways to execute, right, in the face of a significant error or mistake.
Despite Moncler's success, questions do remain about whether it's a risk to base an entire business on one product, a puffer jacket.
We see huge growth potential in the puffer jacket. Its heritage, its history, its base, its foundation. There isn't a huge amount of competition out there, so we would say that there's definitely longevity there. And even around the new design implementations and one-off collaborations that they have going on, the puffer jacket provides the base. So the answer would be no, we see long-term growth prospect for the puffer jacket.
Good grammar and spelling are important. But if you want to write essays that inspire,
Genius was as much a device to create a conversation with customers as it was to shake up his own company.
After 10 years, my feeling was everybody sleep a little bit in the company. And I think we have to change something, we have to attract different customers, we have to...
You thought everyone was a bit asleep in the company?
Yes, because after 10 years, also myself.
Yeah.
Also myself, because the business was always the same. You have 2 fashion shows here, spring, summer, autumn, winter, and then after spring, summer, autumn, winter, spring, summer, autumn, winter. I think this world, they need much more energy. And that's why we decided to move our ideas from seasonal business into monthly business.
For Ruffini, the biggest risk facing his business isn't an over-reliance on a single product or the vagaries of a faraway market. It's at home.
The bigger risk, I think, is us, the